Hello friends, welcome to the channel. I'm Sai and this is Baby, and today we're going to be doing a baby Q&A. So I posted on my Instagram and my Facebook, which is more just like my personal Facebook, and I got my little list in my little Hello Kitty notebook. So I got Chucky Nesquik and a little Belle baby bottle from the dollar store. So, if you have a bottle too, let me know what's in yours, and we'll get into it. Okay, so the first question is, do I wear diapers or underwear? So I actually don't wear diapers. To my knowledge, it's not super common for like such an adult baby to not wear diapers. Like most of the people that I see in the community who are like baby almost every day like also wear diapers. And I don't wear underwear either. But that's just a personal choice. But yeah, diapers aren't for me. They don't bother me or anything, because again, like most of the people in the community who are like me like wear them, so that's what I'm surrounded by, so I don't think it's weird or anything. But yeah, they've never been like my thing. Number 2, how do you get into little space and how do you get out? So getting into little space, it can happen a lot of different ways, and I think that's the case for a lot of littles. Like it can be something like your caregiver will use a certain tone of voice or like a certain combination of words with you, and you're like, I'm baby now. Or like if you're like sitting consciously trying to get into a little space, a lot of the time trying to color or play like a little game or watch cartoons, stuff like that. That can be really nice. And for me too, like stuff that I did when I was actually growing up, like even if it's not like super baby in and of itself, like even if it's a more grown-up show like that grown-ups used to watch around you, like it can still like hit the nostalgia and kind of bring you to the baby place. Yeah, and then getting out of little space, that's an interesting question, because I guess I normally just kind of naturally come out of it, because I guess if I need to come out of it and I'm not naturally coming out of it, then there's probably something like external, probably something grown up like happening to make me do that. So that would be the thing, like that would make me stop being little. And by like naturally come out of it, I mean like if I'm little early on in the day and I wind up being like not later on, because a lot of the time I'll like get little in the evening and then I'll have like a whole little night with my daddy and then I'll go to bed like still feeling really little. But if I do it like earlier in the day and then I'm gonna be like a grown up later, then I just kind of, slowly transition, if that makes sense. Like it just kind of, I start to more and more feel grown up and like come out of it kind of naturally as I shift into that mentality, I guess. Has ddlg affected any of your relationships, family, friends, or romantic, negatively or positively? I mean, definitely in terms of like me and my daddy, like we would be perfect for each other if that was removed from the situation for both of us. but I think the fact that, like, both of us were into that on our own, and it wasn't something that either one, like, introduced to the other, like, that we could just kind of naturally bring that role, and that was something that we both really wanted in, like, a partner. I think that that has affected our relationship positively, because this is, like, it's special for us. And aside from that, I mean, there were, like, a couple random Facebook acquaintances that I deleted because they weren't, like, supportive, but I wouldn't really consider those, like, friends. All of my, like, friends have actually been really supportive of me, and they've been really nice, even if, like, it's not something that they, like, knew about before me, or, like, are whatever at all. Even some of my family members, like, are aware, like my mother's in the kink community anyway, so, like, she's aware of it. It hasn't honestly been a big deal, because as you can probably guess from just that she's not the normal kind of mother. Yeah, and I mean, like, previous partners that were vanilla, like, it wasn't a big issue with them either. They tried, like, to do the whole daddy role for me. It wasn't necessarily something that, like, for me, as, like, baby as I am on the day-to-day basis, I think I kind of need someone who is naturally a daddy, who, like, has, like, who wants that as their relationship dynamic. But it, you know, people did, like, at least they were open to it, and they tried, and it was, like, that's really, yeah, it's, people have been really positive, which was really cool, because, you know, it can be kind of nerve-wracking, as everyone in the community knows, coming out as that to people, and I'm really open about it in my, like, life too, like, on my Facebook and stuff. So yeah, people have been really cool. What sort of things do I do in little space? Okay, so I like coloring. I also like puzzles a lot. I think they're really fun. I like playing with blocks. I like having little tea parties with my stuffies. Watching stuff like cartoons. I especially love, like, Ruby Gloom, Winnie the Pooh, the Hello Kitty cartoons especially. I am a big Sanrio baby. So pretty much all of the Hello Kitty cartoons, but especially, like, Hello Kitty's Paradise, and, like, the Hello Kitty and Friends that's, like, happening now on YouTube. Hello Kitty's Fairy Tale Theater is, like, the only one. I don't really watch Hello Kitty's Fairy Tale Theater. Is mid. Stuff like Blue's Clues and Care Bears. And like I said earlier, like, stuff that I watched, like, I grew up on, that I love, that even though it's not necessarily baby shows, it, like, kind of brings me back to, like, being a kid. So, like, Stargate SG-1 and Star Trek TNG. I have an Enterprise D tattooed on my ribs. Lots of other stuff. But yeah, and anything with my daddy. Like, my daddy pretty much makes me feel little almost automatically. So the next two questions actually kind of go together really well. What don't you do, and what's off limits? So, like, things that I don't do, and or like don't want to do, would be like diapers. Like, it's not my interest. Things that are off limits, for that I would say, like, I can't imagine myself ever actually being, like, baby during sexy time, you know? Because when I'm baby, that's just, like, sex is lucky. So yeah, I would say I'm sure that there are other things that I don't do or that I would like not be open to that like didn't come to mind, but those are the main two that I think of offhand. What age-ish do you feel? So I put my little age kind of at like 1 to 7, which is what's in my bio, because it really depends on like the day, how, or even like the time of day, like how little I'm feeling. Because sometimes I'm like super duper baby, and I'm just kind of saying nonsense words to my daddy, and other times I might just be like kind of a little kiddo. Okay, next one is, why do you enjoy little space? So, for me, being little has been the best way to relax, because it takes you out of kind of all of the stress that's happening, and you can just kind of be in your own little world. And it's very nice. And it can be very healing, which is what a lot of littles find and what a lot of littles use it for. It's like healing and as a coping mechanism, because especially if you have childhood trauma, it is a really nice way of like going back and kind of reliving some of the happiness that you kind of were supposed to have but maybe didn't fully get to have. And that is definitely not to say that all littles have childhood trauma, because that is sometimes a generalization that gets made, and it's definitely very untrue. But yeah, it makes me very happy, and it's cute and fun. Yeah. Next question was actually from Daddy. When and how did you first experience littleness, and how has it developed since? Okay, so it's kind of interesting because I feel like there was small signs before I knew what it was. And there was like an earlier on experience that I'll save for the end for a slightly similar question. But the first time that I knew of little space, I stumbled across like a Facebook page, actually, like a little space aesthetic Facebook page, and I saw it and thought that it was cute, so I clicked on it, and I like, over the course of like scrolling for a little while, I kind of realized what it was about, and I was like, huh. And that resonated with me. So I would say that was like my first experience of seeing it and being like, like, this is something that I'm interested in. And it has developed a lot since. It was a couple months after that that I actually went into Little Space for the first time, and I'll do that story at the end too. Then, just over time, I kind of started doing it more and more to the point where it was like almost an everyday thing in my life, and it became like a really big part of me and a big part of how I wanted to like structure my relationships. And it's developed a lot since being with my daddy now. Because before I was with him, I actually never considered myself an adult baby, even though I knew that you could be an adult baby and not wear diapers. Like, you can be an AB and not a DL, you can be a DL and not an AB. Like, I understood that, but I was still like, oh, you know, I'm not into diapers. I don't really think I'm like a baby. And then eventually, when I was was with my daddy, I kind of looked around at like all of the pacifiers and teethers and baby activity cubes and other stuff I'd surrounded myself with, and bottles. And I was like, maybe I'm a baby. And Daddy was like, did you not realize you were a baby? I just always thought like, oh, you know, I'm a little but not a baby. I was wrong. The next one's really interesting. How does little space differ from subspace, if it does? And that's a really, really cool question, because they're both associated with the submissive in the partnership. Both have space in the title. They're both a headspace, but they're very, very different. So, subspace, and there's also subdrop, which is sort of the opposite. Subspace is kind of like a feeling of euphoria that a submissive can have after a particularly intense scene. It's often described as like a feeling of floating, whereas subdrop is like kind of negative symptoms after an intense scene, and sometimes like flu-like. But so those are like emotional responses to a very intense BDSM scene, whereas little space is a headspace that you go into whenever, and where you're like a little baby. So different in both kind of what causes them, I would say, usually. I mean, you can go into little space after an extreme scene, but it's not like, you get what I'm saying. So it's very different, and that's a really interesting question. Last question. When was the first time you entered little space, and were you fully aware at the time that's what it was? So this is a question that I saved both those stories for. So there was a time for me back in high school, no minors in kink, but the story happened when I was in high school, and I wasn't like engaging in anything. I was like big in my Doctor Who mode at the time, and obviously I was very into David Tennant because look at the man. And I found out about he did some like bedtime stories on a CBeebies program, and I watched those on YouTube, and I was like, and I remember like a couple times I like played them before bed, and I was like, and I mean, it was partially derived from my very large crush on David Tennant, but I was like, this is really nice, I love this, and now I'm looking back like, but so the first time I ever actually went into little space, and I actually found a picture of it recently, so I'll put it here. But like I said, this was a couple months after I had found out about like what it was. Like I had seen that page and everything, and I had like gradually been more and more interested in it. And I'd also just gone through a breakup, so I was just having a hard time, and I'd had just a long kind of day at work, and there was a dollar store right by my job at the time. So like after work I decided I was gonna stop there and get myself some crayons and some coloring books and stuff like that, and like some snacks. And I was like, I'm just gonna have like a little me night, you know? And so I did that, and it was really, really nice, and it was really special because that breakup was like my first real like long-term relationship, and I'd gotten into it like almost right when I turned 18, so I hadn't really been on my own. Like, it was my first time being on my own as an adult. And so it was like, it was something that I was finding and doing for me that made me feel good. And it was really special. So yeah, I was definitely aware at the time what it was, and from there it became like more and more of a comfort thing for me. So yeah, that was the little baby Q&A. I hope you liked it. If you have any more questions, I'm always happy to answer them. If there's plenty of questions, I'll just put them in another video. I'm gonna also do a Q&A with my daddy when I go to visit him. So if you have any questions about me and my daddy, how we met, anything about our dynamic, we're both really open. Obviously, that's why we started this channel. So yeah. Thank you for watching. If you watched the whole thing, thank you extra. It's really nice of you. And tell me something about yourself in the comments, because I want to get to know more baby friends on YouTube here. So, okay, friends. We'll see you later. Bye-bye. Excuse you.